Dawn breaks over Kiev with a pale, washed-out light, the kind that makes the world feel colder than it already is. The city is silent, but the silence is wrong, too heavy, too expectant. A long column of people moves slowly through the early haze, their footsteps soft, their breaths visible in the chill. They carry bundles, blankets, documents clutched like lifelines. No one speaks above a whisper. No one dares to ask why the soldiers keep glancing toward the northwest edge of the city, toward the ravine called Babi Yar. A gust of wind sweeps across the road and knocks over a small suitcase. It bursts open, spilling a child's sweater onto the dirt. A woman bends to grab it, but a German guard motions her forward with a cold, practiced gesture. The line continues. Faces show confusion, fear, and exhaustion, but also something else, hope. Hope that this is relocation. Hope that the worst rumors are only rumors. Up ahead, the ravine waits in the dim light. A shadowed cut in the earth. Too deep. Too quiet. A young soldier steps to the edge. He peers down for a moment too long. When he turns away, his expression has changed. He avoids looking at the civilians passing in front of him now. Somewhere below, a single sharp sound echoes up the walls of the ravine. Not loud, but unmistakable. The line freezes. And before anyone can breathe again, the truth begins to rise from the shadows. And what lies beneath this ravine will soon turn Kiev's silence into a terror felt across the world. German boots strike the cobblestones of Kiev with a rhythm that feels final, as if the city itself has been sealed shut. It has been only days since the city fell, yet the occupation already moves with frightening efficiency. Wehrmacht patrols weave through empty streets, pushing past burnt-out trolley cars and shattered windows that still drip with dust. Behind them roll the darker vehicles, trucks with covered backs, engines low, filled with men who do not wear the faces of conquerors but of specialists. Einsatzgruppen. They study maps as they drive, their fingers tracing a single path again and again, northwest, past the edge of the city, toward a quiet ravine no one ever imagines will become a wound in the earth. Posters line the walls. Orders printed in bold letters. Jews are to report on September 29th at 7 in the morning. Bring documents. Bring belongings. Bring everything needed for resettlement. Civilians stop to read the notices, some stare for long minutes, trying to understand. Others tear their eyes away and walk on. But the movement inside the German ranks tells a different story. Ukrainian auxiliary police begin setting up checkpoints with hurried precision. Officers speak in clipped tones, pointing civilians down controlled routes. No shouting. No chaos. Only cold coordination. Rumors drift through courtyards and stairwells, train departures, Soviet sabotage, collective punishment. But none match the speed, the organization, or the eerie calm settling over the city. Because the plan behind these orders is already in motion. And the people answering the summons have no idea where the path truly leads. And once they begin moving as one, tens of thousands at once, the truth cannot be turned back. By mid-morning, the streets leading toward the northwest edge of Kiev begin to fill. Families move in clusters, clutching bedding, tin pots, winter coats, and documents folded into careful squares. These are the belongings of people expecting trains, not danger. A few ask guards where the station is. The guards do not answer. They simply point forward. The column thickens as it approaches the first checkpoint. Ukrainian auxiliary police stand shoulder to shoulder, directing civilians through narrow lanes. The tone is strange, polite, almost calm. A man in uniform helps an elderly woman steady her step. Another hands back a dropped passport. Every gesture feels practiced, controlled, rehearsed for something larger. But something is missing. There are no train whistles. No tracks. No smoke rising from locomotives. Only a winding road leading away from the heart of the city. At the next clearing, German soldiers sort people into loose groups. A sign instructs them to place bags and valuables in organized piles. The atmosphere grows tighter, yet still not openly hostile. It's the silence that unnerves, the silence of men who know exactly what comes next. Then the route shifts. It angles sharply away from any station. The ground becomes uneven. Trees gather closer. And ahead, civilians begin to see it. A narrow passage carved into the earth, descending step by step toward a deep, unseen hollow. Some hesitate. A mother pulls her child close. A guard's hand rests on his rifle, not raised, not threatening, but enough to keep the line moving. One more turn, one more step. And the deception that has carried thousands this far begins to crack. Because the path doesn't lead out of Kiev, it leads down into the ravine of Babi Yar. The closer the column gets to the ravine, the more the atmosphere tightens, subtle at first, then unmistakable. German officers gather near the edge, speaking in clipped, efficient tones. Their gestures are sharp, their eyes fixed on watches, maps, and carefully drawn lists. Nothing about their movements feels improvised. Everything is deliberate. A faint sound rises from below. Not loud enough to identify. Not loud enough for certainty. But enough for a few faces in the line to turn pale. At the top of the ravine, victims are separated into smaller groups. Belongings are taken with mechanical precision: coats, scarves, documents, money. The soldiers do not shout. They move like workers pulling levers in a machine they've operated many times before. A young German soldier pauses when an older man tries to ask a question. The soldier opens his mouth to answer, then stops. Another officer steps in with a single, cold glance that removes all hesitation. The soldier looks away and motions the man forward. The tempo quickens. Orders fall sharper, shorter. Ukrainian auxiliaries tighten the lines. People begin to realize they are not approaching trains. The ground slopes downward, and a chill sweeps through the waiting crowd, passing from one person to the next like a warning carried by instinct. Some try to retreat, only to find soldiers behind them. Others whisper prayers or clutch the hands of loved ones. The silence fractures into fear, soft at first, then spreading in quiet waves. Because whatever waits at the bottom of this ravine, it is not relocation. And the method that now unfolds below is unlike anything Kiev has ever witnessed. Chaos becomes the very terrain of the investigation. Europe heaves under the weight of millions displaced, survivors searching for family, former soldiers claiming false identities, and opportunists slipping through the cracks of a continent still bleeding. For the Allied teams tracking SS guards, officers, and executioners, this is the most perilous chapter, a storm of half-truths, conflicting testimonies, and documents so fragmented they seem to dissolve upon touch. Every day brings a new flood of names. A guard remembered only by his whistle. An officer known for a scar that may or may not exist. A transport overseer identified by the way he folded his gloves. Witness statements collide, fuse, and contradict each other. Yet somewhere inside the chaos lies a pattern waiting to be uncovered. Rumors swirl like wildfire through refugee camps and ruined towns. A notorious camp sergeant spotted near Munich. A female overseer last seen boarding a Red Cross truck. A doctor who vanished from one occupation zone only to reappear under a forged birth certificate in another. And always, the investigators arrive just hours too late, their quarry evaporating into the shifting crowds. But the longer they chase, the more the chaos itself starts to betray the fugitives. Identical forged documents appear in different cities. Escape routes repeat. Safe houses overlap. The same whisper returns from 3 different regions: someone is helping them. Someone organized. Someone with knowledge. And as the investigators pin the newest photograph to the board, they freeze, because the face staring back isn't just familiar. It's someone they were certain had died years ago. The collapse begins not with arrests, but with fear. The fugitives, once confident in the fog of post-war confusion, now sense the ground shifting beneath them. Forgeries are exposed. Collaborators flee. Networks that once smuggled them across borders crumble under surveillance. Their aliases, once airtight, now tremble under the pressure of a world slowly stitching itself back together. Some break instantly. They confess before questions are even asked, undone by the weight of their own silence. Others cling to their denials with a fanatic's resolve. But a few, those who once commanded authority, attempt one final defiant stand. Their world may be dead, but they refuse to surrender its last illusion. One flees into a forest, convinced the ruins of the Eastern Front still offer sanctuary. Another hides inside a barn loft, holding stolen papers and trembling at every creaking floorboard. A former officer tries to rally old sympathizers, his voice brittle, as if willing the past to resurrect itself. Each move reveals their unraveling. Their last stands do not echo heroism, only the desperation of men and women watching their lives collapse. Yet the investigators press in with calm inevitability. Every lead, every testimony, every recovered document points to the same shrinking circle of escape. And then, one night, as an interrogation ends and the room falls silent, a captured guard breaks, whispering a single name the investigators were not prepared to hear. Because it belongs to a figure thought lost in the rubble, a figure tied to far darker orders than anyone had dared to imagine. And they realize the real mastermind is still out there. The smoke of war clears, but the echoes of Babi Yar linger. The ravine remains silent, yet its walls remember every footstep, every cry, every life extinguished in cold efficiency. The surviving witnesses emerge slowly, their testimonies fragile threads connecting the past to the world beyond. They speak of days so heavy the sun itself seemed to hesitate, of nights when the earth shifted under the weight of buried bodies. The killers who survived the collapse of the Third Reich are hunted, tried, and punished, or in some cases, vanish into the shadows of a Europe struggling to rebuild. Justice arrives unevenly, a reflection of the chaos that once allowed atrocity to flourish. Files, reports, and survivor statements become the skeleton of truth, painstakingly assembled to reveal the unimaginable scope of what occurred. Yet memory itself becomes contested. In the decades after the massacre, the Soviet state downplays the specifically Jewish identity of the victims, framing Babi Yar as a tragedy shared by all Soviet citizens. Poets, musicians, and writers pierce the veil of silence, Yevgeny Yevtushenko's verse, Shostakovich symphony, casting a wider light on a site the world had almost forgotten. Monuments rise, debates flare, history is rewritten, but the ravine keeps its secrets beneath layers of soil and sorrow. And even now, as memorials stand, as history books preserve names and dates, the site whispers that some stories remain unfinished. Beneath the surface, beneath the ground, beneath the memory, there are still echoes of what was lost. Because for every truth uncovered, there remains a shadow yet to be named, a silence yet to be broken, a history the world is still learning to confront. This was only one massacre, one ravine, one moment where the machinery of war, deception, and cruelty converged to snuff out tens of thousands of lives in mere days. Yet across the continent, across time, the echoes continue. Each shadowed valley, each abandoned forest, each forgotten town holds a story of those who vanished, and those who survived to bear witness. History is not simply a record of what was, it is a conversation with what remains. We follow the footsteps of survivors, the whispers of witnesses, the trails left by the guilty. And with every story uncovered, the world inches closer to understanding not just the horror, but the resilience, the courage, and the determination that refuse to let these events fade into silence. The ravine of Babi Yar may never fully release all its secrets. Yet the memories it holds, painful, haunting, indelible, serve as both warning and remembrance. To step into its story is to confront the weight of history itself, to feel the quiet lives interrupted, and to honor the voices that refuse to be buried. This journey does not end here. Beyond Babi Yar lie more hidden truths, more silent witnesses, and more shadows demanding to be illuminated. Step with us into the next story. Discover what history tried to conceal. Hear the echoes of the past before they are lost forever. Because every silence has a story, and some stories are waiting to change everything we think we know about World War II.